Well, here we are. I honestly can't believe I'm saying this. Welcome to the very first episode of No Rules, No Rules, Just You. Now, before we go any further, I should probably confess something. I'm excited to be here. Yep, I'm very excited, but equally terrified. Actually, if I were being completely honest, it's probably about maybe 60-40, 60% terrified, 40% excited. Okay, maybe it's 70-30, but at 68 years old, especially after everything the last couple of years have taught me, and trust me when I say that's a story for another episode, I've adopted a new philosophy. Go big or go home. The problem is, when it's come to me doing a podcast, starting this podcast, I've been doing a lot more of the go home than the go big. A little over a year ago, I started thinking, operative word thinking, about doing a podcast. Yeah, just thinking. You know, that dangerous place where dreams go to die. I thought it would be a great compliment to my speaking business. Yeah. A way to connect with people like you, like me, like you, share ideas, have conversations about this stage of life, this stage I call the third act, and talk about how we're all navigating it. And then, like I always do, I talk to myself right out of it. I don't have the time. It's not the right time. I don't know the first thing about doing podcasts. What would I even talk about? Would anybody want to listen? And my personal favorite, what if I'm too old? You know, what's funny is when I say that out loud, like right now in this podcast, it sounds ridiculous. But isn't that how fear works? It sounds perfectly reasonable when it's bouncing around inside your brain, in your head. Then about a month ago, I met a young guy, financial advisor planner, a prospect for my speaking business. And somehow the conversation turned to doing podcasts. Imagine that. He told me about the one he was doing, how much it had grown his business, how much fun he was having doing it. And I'm like, really? Then he looked at me and said what I knew was coming. Sandy, you need to start a podcast. You'd be great at it. You're a natural. I thought, well, isn't that sweet? Then I thought, clearly, he doesn't know how much I enjoy overthinking things. But on the ride home, it stuck with me. It really stuck with me. My cross, so to speak. It was finally time to do, as Nike said, just do it, Sandra. And down the rabbit hole I went. Friends, I have spent the last month researching podcasting like I was preparing for a NASA launch. Yeah, it hasn't been pretty. Microphones, lighting, tripods, editing software, camera angles. I get exhausted just telling you this. I have watched more YouTube videos than any human being should ever watch, evidenced by my weekly reports on screen time. Yeah, I need help. Most of the videos that I've been watching seem to be hosted by these overly enthusiastic 27-year-old guys named Tyler. Every single Tyler seems to be convinced that no one should start a podcast without 6 cameras, dramatic lighting, and something called a boom arm. I'm sorry, but that sounds a little less like a podcasting piece of equipment and more like something a SWAT team would use. Then there was the lighting. Apparently there are ring lights, there are key lights, there are fill lights, there are back lights, front lights, diffusers. What the heck is a diffuser? At one point I found myself comparing lighting like I was about to anchor the nightly news. Yeah, that ain't happening. And don't even get me started on this color analysis. Am I warm? Am I cool? My husband has his own opinions on this. And am I a spring? Am I a summer? Am I a fall? A winter? A nutball? Apparently are people who know this. They actually walk into a room and exclaim confidently, I'm a summer! Yeah, they're nuts. They're totally nuts. I don't even know what season I am, other than in the season of growing older. Then came the camera angles. So you can tell I was Googling the heck out of everything. One side made me look thoughtful and wise. I'm still not sure which that one was. Another made me look like I had had a really hard life. Like a really hard life. See what raising kids will do to you? Do you ever notice how much younger people look that haven't had kids? Yeah, I'm just saying. Food for thought in my next life. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't change that decision for anything. Well, even less wrinkles and gray hair, maybe. Then I started worrying about my voice. Hello. Have I always sounded like this? I don't think so. I'm sure I didn't. Or did I develop this gravelly, slightly snorting helium thing sound somewhere around menopause, when my hormones went into the toilet? Oh, and one last thing. Who in the heck came up with the term thumbnail? How is that even remotely related to a podcast? Just saying. Honestly, by this point, I was exhausted. Not from podcasting, from preparing to podcast. Scary. And somewhere in the middle of all of this craziness, yes, it was craziness, I realized something. This wasn't about microphones. It wasn't about lighting. It wasn't about camera angles. It wasn't even about my voice. It was fear. Good old-fashioned fear. At 68, apparently, fear doesn't retire when we do. I wanted everything to be perfect. Disclosure, I'm a perfectionist, sorry. Everything to be just right. Everything figured out. And then it hit me. If I waited until everything felt perfect, my first episode of this podcast would be my memorial service. Hello? Can you imagine? I can just hear it. Welcome, everyone. Today, we'd like to remember Sandy. She never actually started her podcast, but man, she sure knew how to research microphones. It's funny, but also it's a little bit true. Because if we're not careful, preparation becomes hiding. Research becomes procrastination. Wearing really responsible clothing. And before we know it, someday quietly becomes regret. And I don't want that. Not for me, and definitely not for you. Because here's what I think. What I think happens to a lot of us in this stage, this third act of life. We've spent decades becoming competent, capable, respected. People counted on us, especially if we're women. We knew what we were doing. Then, one day, some little idea starts tapping us on the shoulder. Actually, it's probably a big idea. Write that book. Take that class. Start the business. Learn the language. Travel solo. Volunteer. Speak. Podcasts. Paint. Do the thing. And suddenly we feel awkward again. Like children. Like beginners. Like when we first rode a bike. And can I admit something? Being a beginner is really uncomfortable, especially when we're old enough to feel like we've mastered most everything. We should be good at everything because somewhere in the background, there's this little voice saying, who do you think you are doing this now at your age? Maybe that's the real conversation I wanted to have today. Not podcasting, permission. Permission to begin before you're ready. Permission to be bad at something. Who cares? Permission to look awkward. Permission to not know what in the hell you're doing. You know what's funny? If someone came to me, a friend, a colleague, whatever, and said, hey, Sandy, I want to write a book. I wouldn't try to discourage them. I'd tell them, do it. Go, girl. Start messy. Figure it out as you go. Nobody knows what they're doing in the beginning. No big deal. Go for it. I'd be their biggest cheerleader. Yet somehow, I don't heed my own advice. Maybe you've done that too, because confidence is a funny thing. We think we need it first, but that's not how it works. Confidence comes later. Courage comes first. And honestly, at 68, I don't feel like I have unlimited time to wait for that, to keep waiting for courage and confidence and lighting and all that stuff. There are things that I still want to do, like this podcast, like my speaking business. I'm hoping to live long enough to be the geriatric version of Mel Robbins. Watch out, Mel! Here I come! Things I still want to learn. There are things, lots of things, ways I still want to grow. Maybe that's what this stage of life is really about. Not proving ourselves, not perfecting ourselves. That's going to be hard for me. Just finally giving ourselves permission to become ourselves, to begin. No roles, no rules, just you. So let me ask you something. What are you overthinking right now? What dream keeps tapping you on the shoulder while you keep saying, soon, when I'm ready, when I know more? Boy, that sounds like me. When things settle down, when it feels safer. What if the thing you're waiting for isn't confidence? What if it's the courage? Because courage doesn't show up first. It shows up after the first step. After that awkward beginning. After that messy attempt. So this right here, this is mine. No fancy studio, no perfect setup. I've probably touched my mic too many times. Not knowing what I'm doing, not a clue. Just a woman who's decided she'd rather be embarrassed by action, doing it not so well, than comforted by excuses. So I hit record. I hit it. And maybe it's time for you to hit record too. Whatever that looks like for you in your life today. Thanks for being here, and welcome to No Roles, No Rules, Just You. We're just getting started. See you soon.